Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are tackling the single most frustrating pull-your-hair-out headache for saltwater aquarium keepers, algae. Seriously, if you've got a reef tank or a marine fish setup, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It creeps up on the glass, it completely blankets your beautiful live rock, and it just kind of ruins that pristine aquatic slice of the ocean you've worked so hard to build. But don't worry, because today we're going to learn exactly how to defeat it, completely naturally.
It's incredibly frustrating, right? Looking at your tank and seeing this green or brown fuzzy mess instead of your vibrant corals and fish. And when that frustration hits, man, is it tempting to reach for a quick fix. You'll see store shelves full of magic potions and liquid treatments promising to just magically eradicate algae overnight. But here's the harsh truth we need to confront today. Those quick fixes are deeply flawed.
Okay, let's dive into this. Chemical algicides might seem incredibly convenient in the moment, but they really just act as a dangerous band-aid. They mask the underlying imbalances and often create brand new toxic issues for your sensitive livestock. A no-chemical approach, on the other hand, focuses on biological balance. It actually corrects the root causes of the algae and supports incredibly stable, healthy conditions for your corals and beneficial organisms. It is the only truly sustainable way forward. To get there, we're going to climb what I call the ecosystem ladder. 1. Identifying the root of the problem. 2. Mastering your tank's light. 3. Lowering nutrients and increasing flow. 4. Building natural algae competition. And 5. Embracing routine, stability, and patience.
Starting right at the bottom of our ladder with Section 1, the root of the problem, identifying the environmental imbalances. To actually defeat algae, we have to stop looking at it as some kind of unprovoked attacker and start seeing it for what it really is. An opportunistic villain that's simply taking advantage of underlying issues in your tank's environment.
You see, controlling algae isn't about magic. It's about managing 4 specific environmental levers. Algae typically thrives because of excess dissolved nutrients, way too much light, weak water movement, or, let's face it, poor routine maintenance. If you've got an algae bloom going on, I can almost guarantee you that one, or maybe a combination of these 4 factors, is totally out of whack. So that brings us to Section 2, master your tank's light, the fastest, safest lever. This is absolutely the most immediate factor you as an aquarist can control right this very second. Most algae growth is incredibly strongly tied to available light, so this is exactly where we want to launch our counterattack. Taking practical control of your lighting is simple, but it's incredibly effective. First up, reduce your display's photo period to a consistent schedule. We're talking often just 6 to 8 hours for tanks that don't demand heavy light. Second, completely avoid direct sunlight exposure from nearby windows. Seriously, keep the blinds closed. And third, use a reliable timer to prevent accidental over-illumination. You want to take active charge of this schedule so it runs like absolute clockwork, day in and day out. Now, you might be wondering, why does simply turning down the lights work so well? Well, it all comes down to a really delicate balancing act, especially if you're keeping photosynthetic organisms like corals. You got to adjust cautiously because a lot of algae blooms happen specifically when the light intensity is super high, but the nutrients aren't balanced for the system. Light provides the energy, right? And if it outpaces what your corals can consume, well, the algae is going to happily use that energy instead. Let's move on to Section 3. Lower nutrients, increase flow. Starving the algae and keeping the tank clean. We're moving up the ecosystem ladder now, transitioning from the energy source, the light, to the food source. This is all about the crucial balance of what goes into your tank versus what comes out. Essentially, we need to starve the algae. Thinking about your inputs and outputs brilliantly illustrates what I like to call the core nutrient equation of aquarium keeping. Your sources of nutrients are uneaten food, overstocking, and accumulating detritus. These all break down into basically an all-you-can-eat dissolved nitrate and phosphate buffet for nuisance algae. Your exports are your regular water changes and your mechanical filtration. The ultimate goal here is to dial down those sources by closely managing your feeding and maximize the exports to pull particulates out of the water before they have a chance to break down. But here's the catch. Your nutrient export won't work at all if the waste never actually makes it to the filter. That's exactly why we have to talk about low-flow zones. These are those dead areas in your tank with really weak circulation. When waste and organics are allowed to just settle and linger in these biofilms, algae exploits them so rapidly. It's like a buffet that just sits there. This highlights the absolute critical necessity of upgrading and maintaining your pumps and power heads. The flow must remain strong and consistent across the entire tank. And speaking of equipment, Here's a massive trap a lot of aquarists fall into. You can have the best, most expensive filtration system in the whole world, but if those filter socks and pads get completely clogged with organics and aren't cleaned out, they stop being nutrient removers entirely. Instead, they actually become nutrient sources, just quietly pumping dissolved nitrates right back into your beautiful water. Routine equipment cleaning is completely non-negotiable.
Moving up to Section 4, Build Natural Algae Competition, bringing in the biological reinforcements. Up until now, we've talked mostly about mechanical and environmental controls. Now we're shifting into biological warfare. We are bringing in the living reinforcements to make your tank's environment incredibly unfavorable for these nuisance outbreaks.
Depending on whether you have a full reef or a fish-only setup, utilizing suitable natural algae grazers is usually your first line of defense. Snails, certain crabs, or tangs. They literally eat the nuisance growth for you. But let's take this a step further and look at an even stronger strategy: establishing a refugium. This means intentionally growing desirable macroalgae like Chaetomorpha in a separate controlled area of your sump and then regularly harvesting it.
We do this because a refugium with macroalgae can act as a massive nutrient sink. By providing a dedicated, strong light schedule to this separate area, your desirable macroalgae enthusiastically consumes the nitrates and phosphates right out of the water column first. It actively outcompetes and quite literally starves the bad algae up in your main display tank. You're basically growing the good stuff to starve out the bad stuff. It's brilliant.
Which brings us to our fifth and final section: routine, stability, and patience, the long game of aquarium keeping. Okay, so we've optimized the light, we've balanced the nutrients, fixed the flow, and added biological competitors. But listen, none of this works overnight. This is the long game, and consistency, along with biological maturity, are absolutely your ultimate heroes here.
To keep the algae from ever regaining the advantage, you have to stay in active control with a specific, measurable action plan. Step 1, manual removal. Get in there, scrub the glass, siphon the rocks, and discard that detritus. Step 2, prevent nutrient creep with diligent weekly water changes and routine filter checks. And Step 3, test your water for key parameters like nitrate and phosphate. Seriously, don't guess. Make sure the changes you're making are actually measurable.
So, the crucial point I want to leave you with is this. If you've just recently set up your tank, or maybe you made some major changes like upgrading your lights or adding brand new dry rock, you are going to see algae. This is the inescapable new tank reality. Outbreaks are totally, completely normal during this time because your beneficial bacterial populations and all those algae competitors we talked about, they just haven't fully established themselves yet. It's just an immature system trying its best to catch up. So please, whatever you do, don't panic.
The absolutely best no-chemical strategy in this specific scenario is disciplined stability. Just stick to consistent feeding, reliable filtration, and a heavily controlled lighting schedule. Stabilize the system first, and then just step back and observe the changes over a period of 2 to 6 weeks. Gradual, well-thought-out adjustments will beat panicked reactionary chemical dosing every single time, I promise you.
Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. When you're staring down a really ugly algae bloom, ask yourself, have I truly balanced the light, the flow, and the nutrients? Because if you have, then perhaps your saltwater ecosystem simply needs the most important, entirely chemical-free ingredient of all: time. Trust the natural biological process. Stay consistent with your routine maintenance, and your reef will absolutely reward you. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and happy reefing.